We'll just wait on Whitaker, like, as always. Okay, at this time, I'd like to call to order this TIRZ 1, 2, 3, 4, and Power Center Board meeting on this April 30th, 2025. Dane, could you lead us into invocation, please?
Yes. Dear Lord, thank you so much for the rain today. Please be with us as we make the decisions that we need to make. And please guide us as our election season is coming up to always do what you would have us to do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. If we could all stand and do the,
We love you, but we don't love you that much.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Well, today is great. We've got some visitors. Haven't had any in some time, but
It's like the nursing home.
any remarks or anything that any visitor would like to say at this time? No? Okay.
We don't want to talk.
Great, great. I trust we've all had a chance to look at the previous meetings' minutes. If there's any questions or concerns? Anything to discuss? If not, can I get a motion of approval of the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes of the last meeting as read.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving right along into the new business. Discuss and consider resolution number 2025-2, approving the final TIRZ number 5 project plan and finance plan. Mr. Sims?
Okay, so I will just jump right into this. In this gigantic binder here in front of me, I've got Resolution 2025-2. And again, end of a long process, and no surprises here, but we've been working on creating the tax increment refinance zone, and we have our project plan, finance plan in final form. The major guts of the project plan, finance plan are not different than what you saw and approved or was approved as the preliminary plan. But you do update a couple little bits and pieces of it, obviously the front page, but then there's lots of phrases in the preliminary plan about will be this, going to do that, will be this, going to do that. You change out all those phrasing. In addition, we had some definitions in there that we wanted to update and change so that the definitions in the project plan, finance plan met the definitions that were being used in the TIRZ agreement. So you'll see the TIRZ agreement next, and one of the best things about the work that we've been doing is our legal team's been making sure that we don't misdefine something in one or define it slightly differently in the other. So not the most exciting range of things to be working on, but as sort of an example, I'll take you over to agenda item page 13 of 176. That's page 4 of the project plan, finance plan. That's where you can read about, well, how did we define public improvements? And we'll be able to reference back to this. So phrases in here like full project cost to road, water, wastewater, drainage, landscaping, parks, trails, soft cost contingency, and some of that's the same as it was before, but we did want to make sure that we weren't leaving out our public safety equipment, right? So we say also public improvements include public safety-related improvements such as, but not limited to, outdoor warning systems, security camera detectors supporting 911 service, and other police, fire, and emergency preparedness element. So do we know exactly what we might spend that money on right now? No, that's not what the purpose of the project plan finance plan is. But as an example of a project, right now, if I look at my map of where my outdoor warning sirens are, I'm right on the edge of being able to hear an outdoor warning siren when I'm standing at Amazon, okay? I'm not Amazon, but at AutoZone. When I'm at AutoZone, I can barely hear it. So as announced previously, Project Spitfire is an Amazon distribution center. So if I'm down just, less than a quarter mile down the street on Airport Way, I'm really technically just now on the edge of that being able to hear that. So let's say another project comes forward next door to the Amazon Distribution Center, Project Spitfire. We would need to work with them and say, hey, we really need to move forward and get another outdoor warning siren here. So it's not a major project cost because that's going to be in the $40,000 to $50,000 range, but having that wording this way allows us to go to the developer of the next big project and say, hey, when you're building, we want to make sure that you spend the money, not us, but you spend the money for a outdoor warning siren and for a flock camera. Remember, flock cameras are the ones that we use to read license plates. So if you're gonna have a lot of traffic going through this area, maybe we need to add an additional camera to do some more license plate reading out there. That may help them identify a stolen vehicle that's coming in or coming out of their parking lot. So having those there, that might not cost more than $50,000, $60,000 total, but it becomes properly defined as a eligible project cost in here because we took just a little extra time over the last month or so to make sure that all those definitions were clear. In terms of the big picture, it's really the exhibits to this that I always go back to make sure that I understand the big picture correctly in a tax increment refinance zone. So let's go to agenda item page 23. Agenda item page 23 is the map. This covers all of the Fairfield zone. So again, this TIRZ is a single, basically a single landowner, and over 2,600 acres, a little bit south of Interstate 20, and then up along 429, covering all of that land area. Again, the first project being on Airport Road, just to the west of Wilson Road. The next page shows you our non-project costs. You might think of that in terms of some of the public or the private investment in building buildings and that sort of thing. The next page shows you our list of project costs. So there's some definitions in there about what all of those are, but basically telling you that we think to bring the Fairfield district, TIRZ number 5, to a full build out of all the public infrastructure could easily cost us $412 million in new public infrastructure. What's a TIRZ? A TIRZ is a vehicle so the private sector spends that money and gets reimbursed off of their property taxes for the new public infrastructure. So you might look at this as, at the end of this thing, we end up owning $400 million worth of new roads, water, sewer, drainage, and all of the other good stuff out there. That's a way of looking at the tax increment refinance zone. You're generating enough property taxes to own an enormous amount of additional water, sewer, and other public infrastructure. So you can see the on the next page, the timelines of investments that the private sector is making in this. And then if you turn over to Exhibit E, feasibility study, man, it's hard to read, but if you look at, for example, 2026, you can see that there are 935,000 additional square foot of distribution center in place, and that you can multiply that by an estimated value per square foot, and you can see that we're adding $71 million in added value just in that one project. You can go and you can study the rest of that spreadsheet to see, oh, okay, my total under the development added value is $2.1 billion. Well, our overall assessed value of the city of Terrell today is about $2.6 billion, right? So that's everything in the city is a little over $2 billion. This at build out is a little over $2 billion. That's the size of the addition to the city of Terrell that we're talking about in the grand scheme of what we're doing here. So it really is an impactful, meaningful project for us long-term. So I won't belabor anything else related to project plan, finance plan. I'll take you back to the front of that section with the actual wording of the resolution. Wording of the resolution is pretty straightforward. The whereases are all things that you've seen before. And it says, Section 1, the whereases are good to go. Section 2, the TIRZ Board hereby approves and recommends City Council adoption of the TIRZ number 5 final project and finance plan as shown in Exhibit A. And of course, we've got that attached for you. That's what we're just looking at. And if you guys approve this, then it will go forward and get adopted by City Council at one of their upcoming meetings. So happy to answer any questions.
You have any questions?
So, quick question.
Yep.
Sorry. Has the planning and zoning, who else has seen this before it gets to us?
So planning and zoning has seen the land use, right? So everybody gets different bits and pieces of this thing. City Council has seen the whole thing in executive session. P&Z saw the specific land use for the Amazon Distribution Center. They saw the land use plan here in the project plan, finance plan that you saw in here for all of the land use that's on that particular piece of land. And they gave those yes votes as they moved forward through that process. They've also now seen at P&Z the construction plat, which is all the details associated with that. In terms of this specific thing with the overall financial analysis, most of that's really held by City Council to take a look at that. And then, of course, you guys have seen it bits and pieces through there. You know, the division of labor is that P&Z wouldn't go through the math of the development deal. They would be attentive to the land use of the development deal. Okay?
Thank you.
Yep.
Charles, you have any questions?
No, I'm scared.
All right, well then, how about we get a motion for resolution number 2025-2?
I move to accept resolution number 2025-2 as it's written and been presented.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 6.2, discuss and consider resolution number 2025-3, approving a TIRZ number 5 agreement.
Okay, so this time around, we're on agenda item page 43, and 2025-3 is just another piece of the overall puzzle. Back in January, the City Council approved a development agreement with Hunt and for the Fairfield Municipal Utility District area, that same 2,600 acres. And it had very specific stuff that we were doing related to, at the time, Project Spitfire. Now we're calling it the Amazon Distribution Center. And it had very general stuff for the overall 2,600 acres. For the 2,600 acres, we said, hey, we want to do a project plan, finance plan. So at the time, council in January was seeing a preliminary version of that, and they were seeing preliminary wording associated with the tax increment refinance zone agreement. So think about the overall flow of this. We've given you more than you're really voting on here, because if you look at the resolution, you're saying, okay, we're authorizing the TIRZ agreement. When you turn over here, though, take a look at agenda item page 45. That's the first page of development agreement. So the development agreement is really not your purview, right? The development agreement is really the city council's, and they've said already, yes, we like this. But one of the attachments to it is your purview, and that's the TIRZ agreement. So I'll kind of show you a little bit about how this works. After all the recitals, you get a little bit of stuff about the land use, and then you've got impact fees. So we don't talk about this a lot, but just one of the things that's an important little detail, go to agenda item page 48, Article 3, impact fees. Remember, if it's outside the city limits, you don't collect any impact fees at all. So we had a negotiation, not with Hunt, but with Project Spitfire, the Amazon guys, about what they would pay. If they developed outside the city limits, we would receive zero. If it had already been in the city limits and we were charging them for everything, we would be charging them about $4.2 million for their impact fees. So now we're just in the world of negotiating, right? Because they're coming in voluntarily. They don't want to pay full impact fees, but we say, no, we really like for you to pay full impact fees. So we haggle around a little bit, talk about it, try to make our case. They try to make theirs, and you turn over to the very next page and you say, oh, okay, they're not going to pay standard road, water, and sewer impact fees. Instead, they're going to pay a consolidated development fee in a negotiated amount of $3.7 million. So that $3.7 million will come to the city council will receive that money, city council will do its own mulling over and thinking about, okay, how are we going to expend that money? Typically, that money would come in and, you know, some would be allocated to water, some would be allocated to sewer, some be allocated to roadways, and they'll have to go through that process at city council for how to spend that money. That part of the negotiation was something that basically Amazon was approving and then having embedded in this development deal, because it trickles down that they're the ones paying this fee when they come in. So again, important part of the overall program. And I'm going to try to flip back real quick to where there's a list of the attachments in the development agreement. So go back over here to agenda item page 58. Agenda item page 58 shows you what are the exhibits to the development agreement. The development agreement's basically saying, okay, there's a description of the property. Talked about that last time because A and B are a whole bunch of descriptions, right? Exhibit C1 is the site plan, C2 is some landscaping, C3 is the cross-section. If I go to those, what I'm going to see is that all of this is specific not to the overall Fairfield project, but these are all exhibits associated with what the Amazon DC will look like. So this is what P&Z looked at, right? So when I'm in Exhibit C1 site plan, it's broken up and you kind of got to attach it to itself, but you can see on the very first page in there, this is where the trucks come in and they have to queue through the security system. The next page shows you sort of the back side. I'd call that the northeast corner of the project. On the northeast corner of the project, you can see that they have a large green area saved over there. Technically, they can expand into that, but that's pushing right up against the floodplain that happens to be out in that zone as well. So that little dashed line along the edge of their property line, that's that floodplain that's out there, and you can see the edge of their detention pond on there as well. On the very, well, I'll flip over one more page. On the next one, you can see, it looks like they're not really getting up to the end of the property line up there. They're actually reserving 60 feet up there because that arterial we've talked about from time to time of redoing an arterial so 429 can get directly down to the Wilson Road intersection on I-20. You can actually get off on I-20 on Wilson Road and stay on one arterial all the way to eventually cross where 429 will be adjusted so the north and south line up on 429. That's 60 foot on the backside is 1/2 of the land dedication necessary for that. Then if I flip over to the next page, you can see the automobile parking lot for the project and the front detention pond on there. The land sort of slopes. So if I'm at Airport Road, I'm going uphill, right? If you kind of think about how that lay of the land is out there. So they've got detention on the front and on the side of the project. You can see where trucks come out on the far west side of it, and then that driveway that's, I guess I'd call it the second driveway there, that's where cars are coming in and out to get the employees. We're estimating, this is not Amazon, this is us, because they don't like saying these numbers out loud. We're estimating about 1,000 employees based on the parking spaces and our knowledge of what distribution centers of this size will eventually employ. C2 is the landscaping part of it. I won't belabor all the landscaping parts, but you can see they're doing an abundance of trees, and then they have some reserve areas where they're just leaving the floodplain alone. That's a good and healthy thing. And then the cross-section component of the site plan. Those site plans are so hard to read. We wanted some zoomed-in spots so that somebody would stand a chance of reading what's along Airport Road, and you can really see that and see where sort of trees and how that works and where the sidewalk will be and where the underground utilities will be. All that was important to get in there, and the construction plats coming forward consistent with that. And then over here's the back side where you can again see those distances there, and you can see that 60-foot and then a row of trees, and then you can see an 8-foot tall precast concrete panel on the back side of the project. So eventually, one day, when there's an arterial back there, the arterial will have a row of trees parked already growing next to it, and a concrete wall blocking views into where all those 18-wheelers are parked. So then we get to your business, which is Exhibit D, form of the TIRZ agreement. So the TIRZ agreement's been something we've been working on. We went through it in detail last time, so I'm not going to try to beat you up by going through it. Again, the business deals are still the same business deals. If it's commercial property, then we're taking 80% of the maintenance operation, city property tax only, not the county, and we are redirecting that so that it can be available to reimburse the developer for their project expenses, okay? We're taking 30% of anything residential, and we are putting that into the account as well to reimburse the developer for their expenses. And then we're taking that combined flow of funds and whatever is available in that on an annual basis, as long as that developer has spent $3 million, $4 million, $200 million, whatever it is on public infrastructure, those payments, the 30% residential, the 80% commercial, flow over to the developer. So same business deals that we've had for a long time. We just have a final form of the agreement to follow along with. I'm actually going to take you all the way back to the back couple of exhibits. And if you go back to, let's go with exhibit page 174. I'll just do two of these things in the back because they're, I think, very helpful. So this is going to be agenda item page 174. I'll kind of do my eyes a favor by pulling it out and looking at it. So this should be a chart that looks like this, and it says non-residential tax flow of funds in the TIRZ. So I love these. This is created with the help of P3, which is a firm that helps us with some of our work on tax increment refinance zones. Gross tax collections, okay, let's just assume for fun it's $1 million 1 year. We got $1 million paid in taxes. Well, the INS money, right, interest and sinking, which is our debt, right, none of that goes to the developer. So one of the things I'd like to reiterate to folks is, remember all of the drainage projects we have to build, right? All of the road projects, all of the water projects, all of the sewer projects, all of the parks we might want to build in the future. Anytime we would go out and borrow money, right? Our most recent big notable borrowing was $27 million, for which we're building Fire Station 3, new pet adoption center, some roads, Apache Trail improvements that we just did. All of those debt payments on that $27 million comes out of our INS fund, okay? And you can even see that on your property tax bill. And so there's a 15-cent property tax now for interest and sinking fund. Well, what's a good news thing? Good news thing is whenever Project Spitfire builds and all of the rest of the stuff keeps building out there and we've got more development out there, a year where their gross tax collections is $1 million, which won't be that far off in the future, the INS fund will get $200,000. And that's just, again, city council discretion to build projects, borrow money against it, and have the financial support we need to be able to build everything we need to build in this city. M&O, which is the general fund side of it, so there's your $800,000. The TIRZ gets 80% of that. That's $642,000, and remains in the general fund. Remember, we're not giving up all of our M&O. We're still getting $160,000 into the general fund. That's good news. Now, next, administrative costs. We pretended they were zero here, but they'll normally be around $4,000 or $5,000 to have the financial folks take a look at it, make sure we've done all the math correctly and that sort of thing. File the reports with the comptroller that need to get filed. Then after that, we send it down to the developer sub-account. The project costs, things the developer is getting reimbursed for, they get first take, right? But let's say we get ourselves into a future scenario where they just say, hey, we're done building. We don't have anything else that we feel like building. Well, what happens? City projects. Well, wait a minute. We actually can go back into the developer account. If they're not building things, we can go back into the developer account and say, hey, you've amassed a little war chest over here of $4 million. And if necessary, we can pick that money up, give them a chance to build the project, but if they don't want to build something, we can go forward and we can spend $4 million, if that's what's in there, to build a project that we might think is important related to the tax increment refinance zone. So that's the flow of funds. If you liked that and thought, well, that was a great visual, that was terrific, that really helped, well, watch out for Exhibit I. This is what I handed out at the last minute because we were trying to make sure we had all this correct. This is really a guide so that our finance department can do the math right 10 years from now, right? And so, again, I will not read this to you, but this really shows a really nice breakdown about, okay, do it exactly this way. The flow chart is do it generally this way. This is do it exactly this way. When does interest happen? When am I removing a project expense saying, hey, I paid for the whole thing? When the money comes in, am I dividing it correctly? So all of that math in there, we had a couple of things in the footnotes to this and a couple other things we wanted to change at the last minute. And I think it's really helpful. So, again, not to walk you through the whole thing, but take a look at how number 7 is worded there. Beginning balance of new total unreimbursed obligation, right? Okay, that's going to be line 7. 7 equals F plus G plus H. All of that adds up, and it tells me, okay, if I'm doing the math in the accounting department 10 years from now, do I have a guide that tells me what this 40-page agreement really says in terms of math? And we want to make sure that we get this straight. So we went through that in great detail over the last week or so, made sure we had it right. Developers said, yes, we like it. We said, yes, we like it. Our third-party firm, P3, said, yes, they like it. And we just had a little change, so that's why I made that change at the end today. So all of that said, again, kind of same routine here. Let's go all the way back to 2025-3. And I apologize, Dawn, I'm not sure what page I'm on now, but 43. So if I go all the way out to 43, we'll go through the resolution real quick. Again, the whereases are basics that you've seen in the past. Section 1 says we like the whereas sections. Section 2, that the TIRZ board hereby authorizes city manager to negotiate, mayor to execute. I'll tell you, sometimes we do these where there's like still work to be done. We're ready to sign. This is a ready to sign version of this thing, so that's good news. And recommend city council approval of the TIRZ number 5 agreement for the Fairfields Mud land area as shown in preliminary form on Exhibit A. And that's really what you're saying. You're saying, hey, we're happy, we're ready for the mayor, can put a signature on this, and we recommend that the city council also approve this document. So that's a quick overview of the agreement for the TIRZ agreement related to Fairfield Mud. Okay?
Go over one more time.
I'd be happy to. I feel like I covered these things quickly, but then on the other hand, asking a question's great. We're happy to, I know we looked at this at a previous meeting, so, yeah.
Not really. Nothing really changed except you fine-tuned the, that last exhibit on
Yes.
how to approach.
Yep,
the
yep.
futures
And it's the same consistency thing I mentioned before. If we're going to go in and tweak a definition in the project plan, finance plan, I had better be able to go over to the TIRZ agreement and figure out, oh, I didn't word it in an inconsistent manner. And having been a guy who has to deal with these documents, I've got documents that the city approved 4 or 5 years before I showed up. And if I look at it and I say, man, that's not clear, or it's not worded correctly, well, okay, then as city manager, what am I supposed to do with that? I got to sit down with the developer and hash it out, and they may think they get an extra $100,000, and I may think, no, you're not doing extra $100,000. So having the clarity embedded in this up front, it's incredibly helpful, because these are 40-year documents, so well worth the time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if no more questions and everything understood in its entirety, can I get a motion to approve resolution number 2025-3?
I move to approve resolution number 2025-3 as written.
Can I get a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, Mr. Sims.
Great, thank y'all.
Do we have executive today?
Nope.
No.
Nope, nothing.
We can
No, you are done. You're a free man.